working. I see the devil lurking. Is it worth it to murk him? Knowing he's deserving if I serve him. Catch me swerving to stay free. No longer a pee-wee. My consciousness they seek to delete, but my spirit they'll never deplete.
Hola, bonjour. Top of the morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever applies to you, you know. Yeah, hope everything's going well. Hope everything's good in your day-to-day, you know. And I just wanted to share with you my definition of submission, you know, if I may, if you had time, you know. Check it out. I feel like submission has a negative connotation because it's been abused, you know what I'm saying? It's been misused by those who only seek to dominate, you know. So I want to share with you my definition of submission, you know, the good, the bad, and everything in between. How it can be a good thing, how it can be a bad thing, and then, you know, how it plays out in our everyday life and abroad, you know. So whatever your goal is, whatever your aspiration is, you have submitted to the steps you're taking, the process it takes to achieve that goal. Would you agree? So in essence, submission is consent, you know? Submission is your consent to whatever you're submitting to. And I feel like over time, submission has been looked down upon because there are so many who seek to misuse and abuse submission. Submission is powerful depending on your connection to whatever you're submitting to. Whether that be your loved one, somebody you love, your significant other, your goal, what you're going for, and anything that you have a strong connection to, that submission is very powerful and actually will determine whether success will be achieved or not. It can be bad if you submit to that which you don't have a deep connection to, and in essence, you're being forced to submit. You know, that goes beyond your consent. I feel like submission can come by force, and that's where the negative traits of submission or the negative connotation of submission comes into play. But that being said, let's speak about the positive, you know? I always seek to lead with the positive, you know? So let's do that. Let's do it like that. So in cases where you submit to something that you're connected to, for example, if I identify myself as a part of a community, you see what I'm saying? Assuming that the community has developed a foundation and firm ideals, beliefs, morals, standards, whatever the case may be, I'm submitting to the standards or the foundation that was set in place. I'm submitting to that community. You see what I'm saying? Willingly, not by force, because I choose to identify with that community, with that tribe, with that family, you know? So therefore my submission is important because it is a piece of the greater good. You know what I'm saying? It contributes to the goals and aspirations of that community, of that tribe. So in essence, everybody else outside of myself who submits to that community or tribe, that submission is necessary and very important, you know what I'm saying, for the success, again, of that tribe, that community. You know, if you have a significant other, you know, your submission to the relationship, let's say it like that, not necessarily submission to the person, but submission to the relationship will make the relationship a strong, powerful one if your connection or your care, you know, your love for that relationship is intact, you know? But if you're in an abusive situation and you're being forced to submit, you know, now that submission is tainted. You see what I'm saying? Because when it comes to certain words, the way it rings in our ears is how we proceed, you know what I'm saying, according to whatever that term indicates or denotes, you know? It's our perspectives. Our experiences create our perspectives and then therefore creates our understanding, you see? And as we proceed in our understandings, if you have a negative connotation about whatever, is being, you know what I'm saying, observed, fed to you, whatever, whatever, whatever. The way you carry yourself will dictate what that term, that word actually is or means. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you put behind that word will determine what it means. You see? I think when it comes to submission, it's not just on a woman to submit to a man. You know, there are times where the man should submit to the woman, especially if there's a course of action that is being undertaken. You know, if there's a plan, something set in place to achieve a certain mean or a certain end goal. If you're setting out to obtain something or achieve something, there comes a time and place where the man should submit to the woman and the woman should submit to the man, depending on who should take the lead at any given time. You know, each will have their part to play. You know, there'll be a time for each. But I refuse to believe that it is only the woman's place to submit to the will of the man, you know? Because it takes both. If you're talking about a monogamous relationship, it takes both in that relationship to make it a healthy one, to make it a strong one, to achieve anything as a part of that relationship. It takes both of them. You know what I'm saying? They're equal contributors to that relationship. So that being said, if they're equal contributors, there's going to be a time where the woman takes the lead and the man takes the lead, takes the initiative. You see? There's going to be each time. But if the man refuses to submit to the woman when she takes the initiative or takes the lead, therein lies the conflict, and vice versa. You see? And then that also is dependent upon what the goal is of the relationship, where you plan to be as far as progression is concerned, where you're aiming, you know? If I have more understanding or knowledge on how to achieve the goal that is set by those involved in the relationship, you know what I'm saying? Then naturally, more times than not, I will probably be taking the lead. And your submission or the woman's submission to my lead is necessary for us to achieve the goal. You know, if she has more understanding or knowledge about how to achieve the goal, then naturally again, you know, the rule still stands, it still applies, that she will more times than not take the lead. So if I don't submit to her lead, you know, again, therein lies the conflict. So I feel as though if we get the negative connotation out of our mind when it comes to submission, we will be better for it. Because for any organization to succeed, any people to succeed, any civilization, if it's to succeed, it takes the submission of the people to the standards set or the principles set, you know what I'm saying, by that civilization, by those people, for it to succeed. It's vital, it's necessary, it's of the utmost importance. You know what I'm saying? That's the only way. Because think about what anarchy is. Anarchy is the opposite of submission. There's no consent. We're not abiding by what is set in place. We're going against that. Not to be confused with autonomy, you know what I'm saying? Because that's organized independence. That's organized separation. So in that case, in autonomy, you have to submit to what the autonomous group has decided as the principles to live by. As a group, after deliberation, not one person setting in motion or setting down the principles, but as you deliberate, you know what I'm saying? If you become an autonomous tribe, autonomous people, you know, there's organization there, excuse me. You see what I'm saying? So therefore there's submission or consent from the people that makes that a solid body, you know what I'm saying? A solid constituency. Anarchy is the opposite. No consent, no submission. So when channeled right, submission is very important, very powerful. And I don't believe that submission is an inferior place. You know what I'm saying? It's not if you submit, you're below whatever you're submitting to. Nah, because that submission is powerful. Without that submission, you will not confirm the person in the lead, the tribe that you submit to. You don't validate it without the submission. And I think that's where we get it twisted as well, personally. Now, I see it different. I'm laying out my definition to you, but I know a lot of people that believe submission is inferiority, and that's not the case. That's that negative connotation, you know? Submission is only inferior if you're forced to submit. You see? The way the police treat us, you know what I'm saying? Most of us, maybe not everybody has experienced this coerced submission, but not, you know, in my case, it's happened to me, you know, when you are being subdued by the police, that is forced submission. So therefore, from their point of view, never do I believe I'm inferior, but from their point of view, the way that they treat or deal with me will make me believe that they see me as inferior, forcing me to submit, you know, to be subdued for them to carry out whatever action they see fit, them, according to their discretion, you know? But in that case, that right there is a dynamic of inferior, superior. You see? Anything that's forced upon you, anything that is that you're coerced to do without your discretion or your ability to make a decision, your ability to choose, you know, that right there is a inferior, superior situation or relationship. The type of submission that I'm speaking on, my definition of submission, is your choice to do so. It's all about your decision, what you decide. You can choose not to submit to a relationship, to a certain tribe and their principles. You can choose not to. That is you're well within your right to do so. I would never take that away from anybody. It's always by choice, never by force, you know? Always, in everything. You can apply that where you may, you know what I'm saying? In anything you do, you should always decide whatever you do. That's your choice. Anytime somebody seeks to take that from you, you need to question that interaction. You need to question that situation, you know? Because now you're being stripped of your ability to decide whether you want to submit to the plan, to the goal, to the aim, to the relationship. That's being stripped from you. Once your ability to decide is stripped from you, you know, that is somebody that's seeking to dominate. Not that you're vulnerable. It doesn't mean when somebody attempts to dominate you, that doesn't always mean you're in a vulnerable position. More times than not, that's when somebody that seeks to dominate will come at you when you're in a vulnerable position. But that's not always the case. Some people are just naturally aiming to dominate, whether in conversation, whether it's in interactions with people, whether it's because of a position they hold, whatever the case may be. That's their mindset. I mean, they're going into every situation to dominate it. When it comes to that, when it comes to an individual such as that, you know, there is no opportunity to decide whether you want to submit. You see what I'm saying? So I feel as though if we get to the side of that negative connotation, our relationships will be better with each other. Our dedication and devotion to that which is outside of ourselves, as far as the people are concerned, will be better for it. What we organize, what we plan to achieve as a whole, will be better for it, you know? A lot better for it. Because when somebody, if you look at our history, those who have done great things, may they all rest in peace. May their soul be at ease, you know? All those who have set out to organize and mobilize us as a people, it took the submission, also the faith of the people in the men and women who were setting things in motion. You know what I'm saying? It took the submission and faith of the people to spur them, to make them do what they do, to give them the validation, you know what I'm saying? To set out, to put things in motion, to organize, to mobilize. Without the submission of the people, where would they be? What could have they achieved? What would they have achieved in their life? Excuse me. You know what I'm saying? What could they have achieved if the people didn't submit to their idea, submit to their course of action, submit to their principles that they laid down? Now, those who come among us who don't submit or consent to those principles that our ancestors who fought the good fight laid out, you know what I'm saying? Those in turn, that's how you get the infiltrators who work as a part of an entity that wants to destroy the organization. That's how you get the informants, the infiltrators. They haven't submitted to the body politic of the people, who the people have submitted, or the submission of the people allowed for those who are mobilizing to put in place. I hope I made sense right there, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like you see what I'm trying to say. Because those who infiltrated and in turn helped entities outside of the organization that we, the people, you know what I'm saying, our ancestors put together, you see, because they didn't consent or submit to the whole, it automatically caused conflict within the tribe that was being built, within the nation that was being built, despite the submission of the people to those who were putting those things in motion. So right there, you can see the dichotomy. You can see how it can be good and how it can be bad. It's all in how it's used. It's all in how it's channeled. And again, that goes back to your connection to whatever you decide to submit to. Very important. Very important, because I feel like we got it twisted. And I feel like the reason why we got it twisted is because of our history in this country. We've been forced to submit to so many atrocities for so long that when we get amongst each other, the thought of submitting to each other is like heart-wrenching, because you like, yo, you know what I'm saying? I'm barely getting me. I had to adhere to this and buy into this, and you know what I'm saying? I had to do it this way for so long. I'll be damned if I submit to you. That's like the mentality. Because why? Because we've been forced to submit for so long. And the dynamic of our submission is that superior, inferior dynamic. Who would want to be submissive in that kind of dynamic? No person I know. I wouldn't, you know? I wouldn't want to be forced to submit to something, you know? Why? Why? But submission can be very, very, very powerful. Because check it out. There are women, men too, there are people who comply but are defiant, you know? It's like defiant compliance. They'll agree with you in the moment, but behind the scenes, they're working against you. You see? Now, that's where submission can be used as deception or a tactic, you know, almost like a war tactic. You know, in the moment, kind of like passive aggressiveness, you know, in a sense. In the moment, you consent, you submit to it. It's cool, yeah. But your connection, your personal connection to that submission is not genuine. So therefore, though you're complying in the moment, you're defiant outside of that moment or out of the presence of that which you're complying to or submitting to. And that can be very, very, very powerful, if used right. When misused, it can cause havoc. Like, for an example, like I just said, it takes the people and their submission or consent to a set of ideals or principles to make the tribe or the nation solidified. You know what I'm saying? To consolidate it, right? Would you agree? So that being said, if there's no connection to that submission, no sincerity in that submission, you will comply, you know what I'm saying? You will consent or submit to the principles laid in place by that nation, by that tribe. But again, if the connection isn't there, if the sincerity isn't there, though you comply in the moment, submit in the moment, you're going to be working against the greater good of the tribe outside of being around those who identify as a part of the tribe. So in turn, you become a detriment to the tribe. That's why you have to weigh within you what you deem as worth your submission. Because if it's not worth submitting to, don't submit to it. Don't consent to it. Because then you'll cause internal conflict, and then it'll be manifested, causing external conflict. So submission really starts with being honest with yourself. Looking at yourself in the mirror and being like, yo, shorty, she talking real decent. I feel like my submission to this potential relationship, you know what I'm saying, would be beneficial to the both of us, And if you come to that conclusion, submit in all sincerity. Not that you're a lesser person or an inferior person, but for the sake of growth, for the sake of building something outside of yourself. And even when you feel as though you need to submit to a person, again, look within yourself and determine within yourself if it's going to warrant or if it's beneficial for you to submit, for not only you, but for the person you thinking about submitting to. Because again, if the sincerity is not in the submission, then you're going to wreak havoc on whatever you're trying to build with the person you're thinking about submitting to. That's why it's important. You got to know what you're standing on, what your principles are. And anytime you feel like you're going to go against your principles by submitting to something, someone, a plan, an idea, whatever the case may be, it is your responsibility to decide not to submit. And who can say you're wrong? Who determines whether what you stand on is wrong or right? And we're all living life, you know what I'm saying? We're all living life. So who am I to say you're wrong for not submitting to the principles laid down as far as us trying to build a tribe or something like that? I feel like we need to live by I'm not gonna get on here and say, you know what I'm saying, but you know what I'm saying? Say there's a set of principles I feel like we need to stand by. And if you feel as though you won't be sincere in your submission to what I laid down, I feel as though you should let it be known. But at the very least, don't go in head first, or don't jump in if you know that's not something you're going to be devoted to or committed to. Because you got to stand by your submission. Stand on them. Again, not as an inferior or beneath that which you're submitting to, but as, knowing who you are, as your personal being. You see? Even when it comes to what you're setting out to do, again, I feel like I touched on this. Be wholeheartedly willing and devoted to the goal you set, or submitting or consenting to the goal you set for yourself, wholeheartedly, sincerely. Because the last thing you want is internal conflict to deter you from consistency in pursuing your goal. So before you submit, again, what am I standing on? What am I trying to achieve? What's the goal here, Oh, the goal is bomb. If I submit to this situation right here, or consent to this situation right here, give my consent, this is gonna be contrary to me getting right. It's gonna set me back. So you know what? I'm not gonna put my energy into submission as far as submitting to this situation right here. I'm gonna go a different way. And you'll save a lot of people a lot of time. Not only you, but the people you intend to build with, possibly, potentially. You'll save yourself and them a lot of time, a lot of headaches. You know what I'm saying? You'll save a lot of people a lot of precious time, bro, because if you're not decisive when it comes to what you submit to, if you're not at least halfway certain, and the reason I say halfway is because things change, you know? You can always adapt the method that you employ to gain your goal, gain what you're trying to gain, you know? You can tweak it a little bit. You see? Because you need to be able to adapt and adjust, especially in life, because life is ever changing, just like time, you know? It's ever changing, ever going. So the reason I say halfway certain is because stand on that half of certainty that your personal feeling, you know, trust your personal observation, your personal intuitiveness, you know, and stand on it. Even if you're wrong, if you find out you're wrong, at least submit wholeheartedly to what you're standing on. And then when you find out you're wrong, you know, submit to, you know, the understanding that, okay, I was wrong, but look, I'm still in it. I'm still consistent. I'm still persistent, you know? And again, you got to have the courage to submit again, even if you're wrong the first time in your submission. Because everything will be rectified. Time rectifies all things, bro. At the very least, time reveals all truth. And then with the truth, you can rectify what's wrong, in my opinion. That's how I see it. You see? Because nothing I feel like overshadows, conflicts with, competes with the truth. And if you seek to be the truth in everything you do, you know, anything you submit to will be in all sincerity. So you can do nothing but grow or learn, even if it's a setback. But if you half-hearted with it, you know, you're not all the way into it, your feelings not into it, you know what I'm saying? And then you comply but defy outside of that compliance in that moment, what are you doing? What's the purpose? Because it sounds good, it looks good, it makes you seem a certain way, you know, you want to present yourself a certain way, you know, in the eyes of those who you're trying to impress or, you know, build a rapport with. And then even then, that rapport is going to be based in fallacy because, again, you complied in the moment, but you're defying outside of that compliance, that submission. So it's a facade. It's a fallacy. So don't submit in the first place. And in the cases where somebody's trying to force you to submit, then I'll give you an opportunity to decide whether you want to consent, submit, whatever the case may be. Never forfeit your principles, which you stand on, to please the next person, bro. Because that person is not going to respect you at the end of the day for sacrificing your principles just to gain acceptance, you know what I'm saying, to make yourself look likable or whatever the case may be in that moment. You see what I'm saying? Despite what you might think, oh, they gonna like me because I am getting down with it, even though I don't really feel like it, and they go against what I believe and my principles and all that, but they gonna like me they not gonna respect you, man. I'm here to tell you that. If nobody else gonna tell you, I'm gonna be the one to tell you, you know, they not gonna respect you because you forfeited, especially if you was saying out your mouth what you stand on, you know, I'll never go for this because I believe, you know, that's not to say that you cannot build and revamp your understanding over time as you grow and learn. But I'm talking about what you understand in the moment, have faith in that, and stand on it no matter what until you gain an understanding outside of your current one, you know, until you build on your understanding. But if you're not standing on what you got right now, when you get more understanding, you're not going to stand on that either. So what's the point? You know what I'm saying? What's the point of making yourself seem a certain way if you're not that? What's the point of doing that? Why would you submit to something you know you're not gonna stand on, or stand with, or stand for? You're wasting time, you know? That's a time waster. That's time better spent submitted to that what you gonna stand on or stand for. I mean, yeah, that's how I feel about it. That's my definition of submission. Again, there's good, there's the bad, and then there's everything in between. But as long as you know what you stand on, what your principles are, submission is a powerful thing. It's very powerful, very necessary too to achieve your goals, your aspirations, whether personally or you as a part of something greater than yourself. So let's kill that negative connotation about submission, because I'm gonna drop this last thing on you. I gotta share this with you. To me, what makes women so powerful is because they are closer to perfecting or mastering the art of submission, whereas more times than not, men have not mastered or even began to try to perfect the craft, because it's a craft. It's an art to submission, knowing when to submit, you know what I'm saying, how to submit, you know what I'm saying? It's an art to that, while still retaining your identity, you know what I'm saying? Your individuality as a being, as a person. You see? Not mental individualisticness, but I'm talking about as a human being. It's an art to know how to submit and still retaining your strength. Women are closer to perfecting that art than men are, because women can enhance anything you begin to build. You know? Anything you set out to achieve, and you have like the blueprint to the plan, a woman can provide, not only in her submission, but her willingness to support, her willingness to empathize, sympathize, have compassion. You know what I'm saying? If she's more inclined with natural feminine energy to do those things, she can enhance anything you set out to do. You see what I'm saying? And if the plan is solid, if it sounds reasonable, if it's sound, if it's built on a solid foundation, her submission is necessary for that plan to be realized. You get what I'm saying? So once we as men, and I'm working on that too, because throughout my life, there's been times where I've been forced to submit, like law enforcement, courts, and stuff like that, that I'm more reluctant to, contribute my submission to certain things, certain situations, and things like that. So I'm a work in progress when it comes to that too. But as a whole, if there are more men dealing with that, the closer men get to mastering the art of submission, the better our relationship with our women would be, because it's almost like she's the only one trying to hone those skills. Not all, those with genuine feminine energy. You see what I'm saying? Not the scandalous ones. I'm talking about the genuine ones. They're closer to mastering that art, because it is an art. It's a skill to it. It's definitely a skill to it. So yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and slide up out of here. That was my definition of submission. And yeah, have a good one.
Your tendency to deceive sickens me, made to betray. Treat you with kindness, you proceed with blindness, believing I'm weak. Your seduction's a detriment to my thugging, there's nothing to cut you off. You went for the double cross and lost. Pleasure for a boss comes with no cost. Fuck what you thought, quick to pop off. When involved in shady business, more double talking than twisted tactics than politicians. You tripping, you never trick me out of position. The intended mission doesn't cease to be because of one rotten seed, so go be free. And keep that negative energy away from me.